Maya Carter lay quietly in the hospital bed, staring at the clock on the wall. 9:05 a.m. Her surgery was scheduled for 9:30. She had been nervous all morning, but there was one thing that made her feel safe. Ethan had promised he would be there. Before leaving home, he had held her hand and said, "You won't have to face this alone. I'll be right beside you." Maya had believed him. She always did. But now, the chair beside her hospital bed was empty. Her phone remained in her hand as she checked the screen again. No call, no message, nothing. At 9:17, she called Ethan. The phone rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. Maya frowned and tried again. Still nothing. A nurse entered the room and gently asked, "Mrs. Carter, is your husband on his way?" Maya forced a small smile. "He said he would be here." The nurse nodded and left. Maya looked at the empty chair again. Then her phone finally vibrated. For a moment, relief crossed her face. But the message wasn't from Ethan. It was from Claire. "Thank you for coming to get me. I don't know what I would have done without you." Maya stared at the screen. Her heart sank. Claire Bennett, Ethan's first love. The woman he had always insisted was nothing more than a part of his past. Then another notification appeared. A photograph. Ethan was standing beside Claire at the airport, smiling as he carried her suitcase. Maya's fingers slowly tightened around the phone. The operating room doors were only a few feet away. Her husband was supposed to be outside those doors. Instead, he was at the airport with the woman he once loved. And for the first time in 5 years of marriage, Maya stopped making excuses for him. She simply stared at the empty chair beside her and realized that she had been sitting alone long before today. Maya stared at the photograph for several seconds. She zoomed in. There was no mistake. Ethan was standing beside Claire at the airport, one hand gripping her suitcase, while the other rested casually in his coat pocket. He looked relaxed, almost happy. Maya looked at the clock. 9:21 a.m. Her surgery was only minutes away. She called Ethan one last time. This time, the call didn't even ring. Straight to voicemail. Her eyes slowly filled with tears, but she refused to let them fall. A nurse entered the room with a clipboard. "Mrs. Carter, we're ready for you." Maya looked toward the door, then toward the empty chair. "Is there someone you'd like us to call?" the nurse asked. Maya was silent for a moment. "No." The nurse looked surprised. "Are you sure?" Maya nodded. "Yes, I'm sure." She signed the final consent form with a trembling hand. For years, Ethan had been the person she called when something went wrong. Today, something was terribly wrong, and he wasn't there. As the nurses began wheeling her toward the operating room, Maya's phone vibrated again. This time, it was Ethan. "I'm sorry. Claire just got back, and she needed me. I'll explain everything when I get home." Maya read the message twice. There was no apology for missing her surgery, no question about how she was feeling, no concern about whether she was afraid. Just an explanation for choosing someone else. Maya locked her phone. Then she typed one final message. "Don't come home for me," she hesitated. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she added, "You already made your choice." She pressed send. The message showed as delivered. Maya placed the phone face down. The operating room doors opened. As the lights above her became brighter, she closed her eyes. For the first time, she wasn't waiting for Ethan. She wasn't hoping he'd change. She wasn't wondering whether she was asking for too much. She was simply accepting the truth. She had spent 5 years trying to convince herself that she was the woman Ethan had chosen. But that morning, in the silence outside the operating room, she finally understood something far more painful. She had never been his first choice, and she was done begging to be one. When Maya opened her eyes, the first thing she noticed was the ceiling. White, bright, unfamiliar. For a few seconds, she couldn't remember where she was. Then the dull pain in her abdomen brought everything back. The surgery, the empty chair, Ethan, Claire. Maya slowly turned her head. Someone was sitting beside her bed. It was Nora. Her younger sister was holding a paper cup of coffee in one hand and Maya's phone in the other. "You're awake," Nora whispered. Maya nodded weakly. "How long?" "About 2 hours." Maya looked toward the chair beside the window. "Did Ethan come?" Nora's expression changed. "No." Maya closed her eyes. She wasn't surprised. Somewhere deep inside, she had already known the answer. "Did he call?" Nora hesitated. "Several times." Maya held out her hand. Nora gave her the phone. The screen was filled with missed calls. 7 from Ethan. 3 messages. Maya opened the first one. "Are you okay?" The second. "Why aren't you answering?" The third. "Maya, I'm coming to the hospital." She stared at the messages without responding. Then another message appeared. "Please don't make this bigger than it is." Maya read that sentence twice. Her eyes became completely still. Not angry, not heartbroken, just tired. Nora watched her carefully. "What are you going to do?" Maya looked at the phone in her hand. "I don't know." She opened Ethan's contact. For years, his name had been pinned at the top of her favorites. Emergency contact, husband, home. She stared at the 3 words beneath his name. Then she deleted them. Nora's eyes widened. "Maya?" Maya pressed one final button. Block contact. The screen asked her to confirm. She pressed block. And just like that, Ethan's calls could no longer reach her. There was no dramatic confrontation, no angry speech, no tears. Just silence. Maya placed the phone on the bedside table. Nora quietly asked, "Are you sure?" Maya looked toward the window. "I've been sure for a long time." She took a slow breath. "I just didn't know it until today." Outside, cars moved through the afternoon traffic as if nothing had happened. People hurried to work. Couples walked down the sidewalk. Life continued. But Maya's life had changed inside that hospital room. She had spent 5 years believing that love meant staying, forgiving, waiting, understanding. But lying in that hospital bed, she finally understood something else. Sometimes leaving isn't giving up on love. Sometimes leaving is the first time you stop giving up on yourself. Maya reached for Nora's hand. "I don't want to go home." Nora squeezed her fingers. "Then you won't." Maya looked down at her wedding ring. For a moment, she considered taking it off. But she didn't. Not yet. Instead, she whispered, "Take me somewhere. He can't find me." Nora nodded. And for the first time since the surgery began, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not happiness, not relief. Something quieter. Freedom. She closed her eyes again. This time she wasn't waiting for Ethan to come through the door. She was waiting for the life that would begin after he stopped being part of it. By the time Ethan returned home that evening, the sun had already disappeared behind the city skyline. He walked through the front door, carrying Claire's suitcase in one hand. For the first time all day, he felt uneasy. The house was completely silent. "Maya?" "Nothing." He put the suitcase down. "Maya, I'm home." Still nothing. He walked upstairs. Their bedroom door was open. The bed was untouched. Her side of the closet was almost empty. Ethan stopped. He opened the closet wider, Most of Maya's clothes were gone, her shoes were gone, her overnight bag was gone. Even the small framed photograph of the two of them that usually sat on her nightstand had disappeared. Ethan pulled out his phone. He called her, straight to voicemail. He tried again. The same thing happened. His eyebrows tightened. "What is she doing?" He sent her a message. "Maya, where are you?" No response. Another. "I know you're upset, but this is ridiculous." Nothing. Then he noticed something on the dresser. A small white envelope. His name was written across the front in Maya's handwriting. Ethan opened it. Inside was a copy of a document. His eyes moved down the page. Notice of intent to file for divorce. He stared at it. For several seconds he couldn't breathe. No. He read it again. Then again. This wasn't a threat. There was no emotional letter, no accusations, no list of everything he had done wrong, just a paperwork. And beneath it was a short handwritten sentence. "I don't want explanations anymore." Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. For the first time, the memory of the hospital flashed through his mind. Maya had been lying there, alone, and he had been at the airport with Claire. He immediately called the hospital. "I'm Maya Carter's husband. I need to know if she's still there." The receptionist checked the records. "She was discharged this afternoon." "Where did she go?" "I'm sorry, sir. We can't give out that information." Ethan hung up. He called Nora. No answer. He called again. Nothing. His frustration turned into anger. He walked into the living room and stared at the suitcase he had brought for Claire. Suddenly, it looked absurd. He had crossed the city for Claire. He had carried her luggage. He had listened to her talk about how difficult it was returning home. And while he was doing all of that, his wife had been going into surgery. Alone, Ethan sat down and rubbed his face. "She'll come back," he whispered. He said it again, louder. "She'll calm down." He had seen Maya forgive him before, when he forgot their anniversary, when he missed her mother's hospital visit, when he cancelled vacations because of work. Every time, Maya had eventually been there, waiting. So Ethan convinced himself this would be no different. He would give her a few days. She would cool down. Then she would come home. But he didn't understand one thing. Maya wasn't waiting for him anymore. Across the city, Maya was lying on a small bed in Nora's spare room. Her body was still weak from surgery. Her stitches hurt whenever she moved. But for the first time in years, she felt strangely calm. Nora placed a glass of water beside her. "You're sure about the divorce?" Maya looked toward the window. "Yes." "Even if he comes begging?" Maya was quiet. Then she answered softly. "He already had me." She looked down at her hands. He just didn't know what he had. Nora sat beside her. "What happens now?" Maya took a slow breath. "Now I figure out who I am without him." She reached into her overnight bag and pulled out an old, worn notebook. The cover was faded. The corners were bent. Nora recognized it immediately. "You still have that." Maya smiled faintly. "I never stopped loving it." She opened the first page. Inside were sketches of children's characters, handwritten notes, and unfinished drawings from years ago. A dream she had abandoned after getting married. A dream she had almost forgotten. Maya touched the first drawing gently. "Maybe it's time I finish what I started." And while Ethan sat alone in their silent house, waiting for his wife to come back, Maya was quietly beginning a life he had never imagined she could build without him. The next morning, Maya woke before sunrise. For a few seconds, she forgot everything. Then the pain returned. She slowly sat up and looked around Nora's spare bedroom. There were no expensive curtains, no marble floors, no framed photographs of the Carter family. Just a small room, a wooden dresser, and sunlight beginning to spill through the blinds. It should have felt like a step backward. Instead, Maya felt strangely peaceful. Nora appeared in the doorway, carrying a bowl of oatmeal. "You're not supposed to get up without calling me." Maya smiled faintly. "I couldn't sleep." "Pain?" "Not really." Nora raised an eyebrow. "Then what?" Maya looked toward the old notebook, sitting on the desk. "I was thinking about that." She reached for it carefully. The notebook was almost 10 years old. Before Ethan, before the wedding, before she became Mrs. Carter, before she learned how easy it was to lose herself while trying to make someone else happy. She opened the first page. A little girl with a red umbrella was drawn beneath a dark sky. Underneath the drawing, Maya had written a sentence. She didn't need someone to save her. She needed someone to remind her she could save herself. Maya stared at the words. Then she laughed softly. "I wrote this when I was 22. Nora sat beside her. "You were good." "I was fearless. You still are." Maya shook her head. "No, I just forgot." For the next several days, Maya focused on recovering. She took her medication. She rested. She walked slowly around the block with Nora. And whenever the pain allowed, she returned to the notebook. 1 page became 5. 5 became 20. The unfinished story slowly began to come alive again. Meanwhile, Ethan's patience was disappearing. He had called Maya every day. Every call went nowhere. He even sent flowers to Nora's apartment. Nora returned them unopened. Then one evening, Ethan finally went to Claire's hotel. Claire opened the door wearing a silk robe. "You look exhausted," she said. "I haven't heard from Maya." Claire's expression changed. "She's still ignoring you?" "She filed for divorce." Claire went quiet. Ethan studied her face. "You don't seem surprised." Claire folded her arms. "What do you want me to say?" "I thought you would understand." "I do." "Then why do I feel like you're not taking this seriously?" Claire sighed. "Because you keep talking about Maya." Ethan froze. "What?" "You came to pick me up because I asked you to. You stayed because I needed help. But every conversation we've had since then has been about your wife. My wife is leaving me. Your wife is leaving you because you abandoned her on the day of her surgery." Ethan looked away. "You don't know the whole story." Claire stepped closer. "I know enough." He looked at her. "You're the reason I left." Claire's eyes hardened. "No, Ethan." She paused. "You left because you wanted to." Those words hit harder than he expected. For years, Ethan had told himself that Claire was the love he had lost, the woman he had been forced to leave behind, the person he would always wonder about. But standing in that hotel room, he suddenly wondered whether he had been in love with Claire, or simply in love with the memory of who they used to be. Across the city, Maya sat at Nora's kitchen table. Her laptop was open. Her old sketches surrounded her. She typed the final sentence of the children's book. Then she stopped. She read the entire story from beginning to end. For the first time in years, Maya didn't see herself as someone's wife. She saw herself as an artist, a woman with a dream, a woman who had survived something painful and was finally ready to begin again. She saved the file. The title appeared on the screen, "The Girl Who Stopped Waiting." Maya smiled. Then she whispered to herself, "Now it's my turn." And somewhere else in the city, Ethan was beginning to realize that the woman he had taken for granted might already be becoming someone he could never get back. 3 days later, Ethan met Claire for dinner. He had barely touched his food. Claire noticed. "You're somewhere else tonight." Ethan looked up. "I'm thinking about Maya." Claire put down her fork. "Again?" Ethan didn't answer. She leaned back in her chair. "You know, when I came back to New York, I didn't expect any of this. Neither did I. You were supposed to pick me up from the airport, that's all." Ethan looked at her. "Then what changed?" Claire smiled faintly. "You did." He frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means you looked at me like you were still 25. Ethan said nothing. Claire continued. "You remembered everything we had. The college apartment, the summer we spent in Boston, the plans we made before our families separated us." Ethan lowered his eyes. "I thought I'd lost the woman I was supposed to be with." Claire's expression softened. "Maybe you did." For a moment, Ethan felt that familiar pull. The old memories, the old feelings, the life he had once imagined. Then Claire reached into her handbag and placed a folder on the table. Ethan looked at it. "What is that?" "I need your help." His expression changed. "With what?" Claire opened the folder. Inside were documents for a luxury hotel project. "My family's company is trying to enter the New York market. We need someone with your connections." Ethan stared at the papers. "You came back for business?" Claire shook her head. "Not only for business, but you need me." "I knew you could help." Ethan slowly closed the folder. "Why didn't you tell me this at the airport?" Claire looked away. "Because I knew you'd say no." The words hung between them. Ethan leaned back. "So when you called me that morning, I needed someone I trusted. And you knew I would come." "Yes." Ethan stared at her. Something inside him shifted. He remembered Maya lying in that hospital bed. He remembered her message. "You already made your choice." For the first time, he wondered if Claire had really needed him that morning, or if she had simply known exactly which part of him to pull. "Ethan?" He looked up. Claire smiled. "You can help me, can't you?" He didn't answer immediately. Then his phone vibrated. A message from his lawyer. "Maya has officially retained legal counsel. Divorce proceedings will begin next week." Ethan's face went pale. Claire noticed. "What happened?" He locked the phone. "Maya is moving forward with the divorce." Claire stared at him for a moment. Then, surprisingly, she smiled. "Maybe that's for the best." Ethan looked at her. "For who?" Claire's smile disappeared. "For both of you." Ethan stood. "I need some time." Claire reached for his hand. "Ethan, don't let guilt ruin what we finally have." He slowly pulled his hand away. "I don't know what we have." Then he walked out. Outside the restaurant, Ethan stood on the sidewalk under the cold city lights. For years, he had imagined this moment. Claire was finally back. His first love was standing beside him again. So why did he feel like he had lost everything? Across town, Maya sat at Nora's kitchen table. Her laptop displayed the completed manuscript. She had sent it to 3 small publishers. 2 had already rejected it. The third hadn't replied. Nora looked over her shoulder. "Are you disappointed?" Maya smiled. "A little." "You can still try again." "I know." Maya closed the laptop. Then she noticed an email notification. She opened it. The subject line read, "We would like to discuss your manuscript." Maya froze. She read it twice. Then a third time. Nora leaned closer. "What does it say?" Maya looked at her sister. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't tears of pain. "They want to meet me?" Nora hugged her. Maya laughed softly. For the first time since leaving Ethan, something completely unexpected was happening. A door was opening, and she had opened it herself. That night, Ethan stood alone in the master bedroom. He looked at Maya's empty side of the closet, then at the empty chair beside the bed, the same kind of chair that had been beside her hospital bed, except this time, the emptiness felt different. This time, Ethan finally understood. Maya hadn't disappeared to punish him. She had disappeared because she had stopped waiting for him. And he was beginning to fear that by the time he finally understood her value, she would no longer need him at all. The following week changed everything. Maya's meeting with the publisher lasted nearly 2 hours. She walked into the small publishing office, carrying a folder filled with sketches, and walked out with something she hadn't expected. A real opportunity. The editor, Daniel Reeves, had loved her manuscript. He didn't care that Maya had been away from her career for years. He didn't care that she had been married to a wealthy businessman. He cared about the story. "You have something here," Daniel had told her. "It's honest." Maya smiled. "I think I finally became honest with myself." Daniel offered her a small advance and a contract for the book. It wasn't a fortune, but when Maya signed her name, her hands trembled. Not because of the money, because for the first time in years, she was signing something that belonged entirely to her. Maya Carter, not Mrs. Ethan Carter, just Maya. Meanwhile, Ethan's life was becoming strangely difficult. Not financially. Professionally, everything was still running perfectly. But at home, nothing felt right. His assistant placed a calendar on his desk. "You have your father's medical appointment Thursday." Ethan looked confused. "Didn't Maya handle that?" The assistant paused. "She used to." Ethan stared at the calendar. Then he realized he didn't even know the doctor's name. Later that afternoon, his mother called. "Did you remember your father's medication?" Ethan froze. "I'll take care of it," she sighed. Maya always remembered. The call ended. That sentence stayed with him. Maya always remembered. That evening, Ethan returned home. The house was spotless. Dinner was prepared by the staff. His clothes were arranged perfectly. Everything was exactly where it was supposed to be. And yet the house felt dead. He walked into the kitchen. On the refrigerator was an old handwritten note. He recognized Maya's handwriting. "Don't forget to call your father after his appointment." He touched the paper. She had written that note months ago. She had probably forgotten it was even there. But Ethan couldn't stop staring at it. He suddenly remembered all the things Maya had done without ever asking for credit. She knew which wine his father liked, which flowers his mother preferred, which clients needed personal congratulations, which employees were going through difficult times, which family birthdays mattered. She remembered everything, and Ethan had mistaken all of it for something automatic, something that would simply continue forever. He sat down at the kitchen counter. For the first time, the truth became impossible to avoid. Maya hadn't just been his wife. She had been the quiet structure holding his entire life together. And he had never once stopped to ask what happened when she got tired. His phone vibrated. It was Claire. "Are you coming tonight?" Ethan stared at the message. He typed, "I can't." Then deleted it. He typed again. "Not tonight." He sent it. A few seconds later, Claire replied, "You're still thinking about her." Ethan didn't answer, because she was right. Across town, Maya sat in her new apartment, surrounded by sketches. Her publisher had given her a small workspace. It wasn't luxurious. There were paint stains on the floor and stacks of paper everywhere, but Maya loved it. She pinned the first illustration of her book onto the wall, the little girl with the red umbrella stood beneath a stormy sky. Maya looked at the picture for a long time. Then she added one final detail, a tiny doorway in the distance, a door opening towards sunlight. Nora walked in carrying coffee. "You changed the ending," Maya smiled. "I did." What was wrong with the old one? She was waiting for someone to come save her. And now, Maya looked at the drawing. Now she opens the door herself. Nora smiled. "That sounds more like you." Maya laughed softly, but neither of them noticed the email that arrived moments later. It was from the publisher. "Your book has been selected for a larger distribution program." Maya stared at the screen. Her hands covered her mouth. She read the message again, then again. A small dream she had buried for years was suddenly becoming real. And while Maya's world was quietly expanding, Ethan's was slowly shrinking around the empty space she had left behind. He finally understood what he had lost. But understanding someone's value after losing them was not the same as knowing how to get them back. Ethan had stopped answering Claire's calls. At first, he told himself he was simply busy. Then he stopped making excuses. Something about Claire's behavior had been bothering him since their dinner. The folder, the business proposal, the way she had known he would come to the airport, and the way she had immediately asked for his help. That morning, Ethan asked his assistant to quietly review the documents Claire had given him. By noon, the assistant returned with a report. "There's something you should know." Ethan looked up from his desk. "What?" "The hotel project Claire mentioned has serious financial problems." Ethan frowned. "How serious?" "She needs your company's investment and your connections to keep it alive." Ethan leaned back. "And Claire knew that?" "Yes." He stared at the report. "Anything else?" The assistant hesitated. "There are emails between Claire's management team and several investors. They've been trying to arrange a partnership with your company for months." Ethan's face hardened. "Before she came back?" "Yes." Silence filled the office. Ethan remembered Claire's message that morning. "I don't know anyone here anymore. Can you please come get me?" He had abandoned his wife because he thought Claire needed him, but Claire had known exactly what she was doing. Ethan picked up his phone. He called her. She answered immediately. "Ethan? Did you know about the investors?" There was a pause. "What are you talking about?" "The hotel project." Another pause. Then Claire sighed. "I was going to tell you. You should have told me before I left my wife in a hospital." "Don't put this on me." Ethan's voice became quiet. "I chose to leave." "Yes, you knew I would." Claire didn't answer. "You knew exactly what to say." "I needed help. You needed my company. I needed you." Ethan closed his eyes. "No, Claire." He shook his head. "You needed what I could give you." Claire's voice became defensive. "After everything we've been through, you're really going to question me now?" Ethan looked out the window. "For the first time, I'm questioning everything." He ended the call. There was no anger in his face anymore, only disappointment. He had spent years believing Claire represented the life he had lost. Now he understood something painful. He hadn't lost Claire. He had lost himself trying to preserve a memory. And while Ethan was finally facing the truth, Maya's life was moving in the opposite direction. Her children's book had been approved for national distribution. The publisher sent her the first printed proof. Maya held the book in both hands. The cover showed the little girl with the red umbrella standing in front of an open door. The title was written across the top, "The Girl Who Stopped Waiting." Maya ran her fingers across the cover. She remembered the woman she had been when she first drew that character. 22 years old, full of dreams. Then she remembered the woman she had become after marrying Ethan. Always waiting, waiting for him to come home, waiting for him to notice, waiting for him to choose her. She opened the first page. There was a dedication. Maya had written it herself. For every woman who forgot her own voice while waiting for someone else's. Nora read it over her shoulder. That one's going to make people cry. Maya smiled. I hope it makes them feel less alone. Her phone suddenly rang. It was her publisher. Congratulations, Maya. We just received confirmation. The first print run has already been increased. Maya's eyes widened. How many? 20,000 copies. Maya covered her mouth. 20,000. A dream she had once abandoned was now sitting in front of her. She looked at the book again. And for the first time, she didn't think about Ethan, not even for a second. Across town, Ethan sat alone in his office. He opened his phone and searched Maya's name. For months, he had expected to find something, a message, a photograph, some sign that she missed him. Instead, he found an announcement from a publishing company. Maya Carter's debut children's book, selected for national release. He stared at the screen. There was a photograph of Maya standing beside her book. She was smiling. Not the polite smile she had worn at family events. Not the smile she used whenever Ethan came home late. A real smile. Free. Ethan's chest tightened. He whispered her name. Maya. For the first time, he understood the cruelest part of losing someone. She hadn't just moved away from him. She had moved forward. And while he had been standing still, waiting for her to come back, she had built a life where coming back was no longer necessary. 3 weeks later, Maya received a message from her lawyer. The divorce papers were ready. Everything had been settled. The house, the accounts, the belongings. There was nothing left to negotiate. Except one thing. Ethan had asked for one final meeting. Maya almost refused. Then she changed her mind. Not because she wanted him back, because she wanted to close the last unfinished chapter of her life. They met at a quiet cafe downtown. Ethan was already sitting at a corner table when Maya walked in. He stood immediately. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Maya looked different, not dramatically. She was wearing a simple cream sweater and jeans. Her hair was tied back. There was no expensive jewelry, no wedding ring. But there was something in her expression Ethan had never seen before. Peace. He pulled out the chair. Please. Maya sat down. Ethan remained standing for another second before taking the seat across from her. You look good. Maya gave a small smile. I feel better. The words hurt him more than he expected. Ethan looked down at his hands. I owe you an apology. Maya said nothing. I know saying sorry isn't enough. No, she replied quietly. It isn't. He swallowed. I was wrong. You were. I should have been at the hospital. Yes. I should never have left you. Maya looked directly into his eyes. No, you shouldn't have. Ethan took a breath. I thought Claire needed me. Maya's expression didn't change. And I thought you needed me. Silence. Ethan looked away. I don't know how I became that person. Maya answered softly. You didn't become him overnight. He looked back at her. What does that mean? It means there were years of little choices. She folded her hands on the table. You missed my mother's final hospital visit. Ethan's face tightened. You forgot our anniversary. He lowered his eyes. You promised to be there when I was afraid, and every time something more important came up, I told myself to understand. Maya paused. I kept forgiving you because I thought love meant giving someone another chance. Her voice remained calm. But that morning changed something. Ethan's eyes became wet. I know. No, Maya said. You know that you missed my surgery. She leaned forward slightly. You don't know what happened after. Ethan stared at her. I woke up from anesthesia and looked at the chair beside my bed. His breathing became slower. It was empty. Maya's voice softened. Nora was there. The nurses were there. Everyone was kind. She paused. But the one person who promised he would be there wasn't. Ethan wiped his eyes. Maya, you lost me in that hospital. Ethan looked at her. Not when I blocked your number. His lips parted. Not when I filed for divorce. She shook her head. You lost me when I opened my eyes after surgery and realized I wasn't waiting for you anymore. Ethan was silent. For several seconds, he couldn't find a single word. Finally, he whispered, Is there nothing I can do? Maya looked at him. You can become a better man. Hope briefly appeared in his eyes. For you? She shook her head. No. For yourself. The hope disappeared. But maybe someday, Ethan said, you could forgive me. Maya smiled sadly. I already have. He looked surprised. You have? Yes. She stood. Forgiving you doesn't mean returning to you. Ethan stared at her. Maya picked up her purse. I don't hate you, Ethan. She paused. But I don't belong to you anymore. Then she walked away. Ethan remained at the table. He didn't follow her. For once, he understood that chasing someone wasn't love. Sometimes, love meant accepting that the person you hurt had finally learned how to live without you. Outside, Maya stepped into the afternoon sunlight. Her phone vibrated. A message from her publisher. The launch event is confirmed. Maya smiled. She put the phone away and kept walking. Behind her was a marriage that had once defined her entire identity. Ahead of her was a life she had finally chosen for herself. And this time, she wasn't waiting for anyone to come with her. 6 months later, Maya stood backstage at a small theater in Manhattan. The room beyond the curtain was filled with parents, teachers, children, journalists, and people who had connected with her story. On the table beside her were dozens of copies of her book. The Girl Who Stopped Waiting, her first book, her first real achievement after leaving Ethan. Nora walked over and straightened Maya's jacket. You ready? Maya smiled. I think so. You're shaking. I know, Nora laughed. Good. That means you care. Maya looked through the gap in the curtain. Then she saw someone she hadn't expected. Ethan. He was standing near the back of the room. Alone. He wasn't there with Claire. He wasn't there to make a scene. He wasn't even trying to get her attention. He simply stood quietly, watching. Maya's eyes stayed on him for a few seconds. Then she looked away. The host stepped onto the stage. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the author and illustrator of The Girl Who Stopped Waiting, Maya Carter. The audience applauded. Maya walked onto the stage. She looked at the crowd, then at the little girl sitting in the front row holding a copy of her book. Maya smiled. Thank you for being here. She talked about the book, about fear, about losing yourself, about learning to start again. But she never mentioned Ethan. She never mentioned her marriage. She never told the audience what had happened to her. Instead, she talked about something much more important. Sometimes, Maya said, we spend years waiting for someone to see our worth. The room became quiet. We wait for an apology. We wait for someone to change. We wait for someone to finally choose us. She looked at the little girl in the front row. But sometimes the person we've been waiting for, she paused, is ourselves. The audience applauded. Maya smiled. At the back of the room, Ethan lowered his eyes. He finally understood. Her book wasn't about him. Her success wasn't revenge. Her silence hadn't been designed to punish him. She had simply stopped building her life around his choices. After the event, Maya sat at a table signing books. One child after another came forward. Then, eventually, the line disappeared. The room began to empty. Ethan remained near the entrance. Maya looked up. Their eyes met. He walked toward her slowly. "I read your book," he said. Maya nodded. "I thought you might." "It was beautiful." "Thank you." He looked at the book in his hands. "You really did it." Maya smiled. "I did." Ethan took a breath. "I wanted to tell you something." Maya waited. "I finally understand." She didn't ask what he meant. He continued. "I thought losing you meant losing my wife." His voice cracked slightly. But I was wrong. Maya remained silent. "I lost the person who believed in me when I didn't deserve it." He looked down, "and I lost her because I kept believing she would always wait." Maya gently closed the book in front of her. "I did wait." Ethan looked at her. "For a long time." She stood. "But I'm not waiting anymore." Ethan nodded slowly. He didn't ask her for another chance. He didn't ask her to come home. Maybe finally he understood that some mistakes don't deserve another opportunity. "I hope you're happy," he said. Maya smiled. "I am." Ethan turned and walked toward the door. Maya watched him leave. Then she looked down at the book in front of her. On the first page was the dedication. For every woman who forgot her own voice while waiting for someone else's. Maya ran her fingers across the words. Then she closed the book. Outside, the city lights were beginning to glow. 6 months ago, she had left a hospital room believing her life was over. Tonight, she walked out of that theater knowing it had only just begun. She didn't need Ethan to regret losing her. She didn't need Claire to fail. She didn't need revenge. She had something far more powerful, a life that no longer depended on being chosen. Mia stepped onto the sidewalk and walked into the crowd. She didn't look back. Because sometimes the strongest ending isn't making someone regret losing you. It's reaching the point where you no longer care whether they do. She had stopped waiting. And this time, she was never coming back.